Hello, hello. My name's Heidi and this is Athena's Book Nook, a parent's guide to all things bookworm. This week we're going to be talking about the book that has taken Book Talk by storm this year. And of course, that is Fourth Wing. In this video, we're going to be talking about a parent's guide to Fourth Wing. Things like, what is this book about? What kind of spice and language warnings are there? Maybe some discussion questions you guys can have with this, as well as what age rating this book has. So let's go ahead and get started with our summary. Fourth Wing follows the story of 20-year-old Violet Sorrengail, the daughter of the commander of Basgiath War College. Now, Violet has spent her entire life up to this point living at Basgiath War College and following in the footsteps of her father, who is a scribe. She's trained her whole life to be a scribe, largely due to the fact that she has a chronic illness that has left her body weak and frail. However, all of her plans change shortly after her father dies, and her mother, the commander of Basgiath War College, decides that she, instead of being entered into the scribe quadrant, is going to be entered into the dragon riders quadrant, just like her two siblings before her. Just before getting the chance to enter into the riders quadrant, Violet's sister Mira gives her 3 pieces of advice. Number 1, trust Dane Ados, Violet's childhood best friend that has been in the Dragon Riders quadrant for the last year. Number 2, avoid Xaden Rearson, the son of a rebellion leader, at all costs. And number 3, don't die. As Violet soon learns, following any of these pieces of advice are going to be a lot more difficult than she originally anticipated. Shortly after proving herself and being accepted into the Riders Quadrant, Dane starts to protect and coddle Violet, saying that she's too weak and too frail to be able to move on her own. Xaden seems to want nothing more than Violet's death, and everyone at Basgiath War College in the Riders Quadrant is trying to get rid of the weakest link, Violet herself. Through each challenge that Violet goes through, she gets smarter and stronger, up until the day that she has to prove herself not only to the other riders, but also to the dragons. This is the threshing. While on the lookout for a dragon that she could bond with, Violet actually comes across a tiny dragon that is being attacked by 3 men. Violet decides to step in and save this small gold dragon, who she later finds out is named Andarna. Because of this act of bravery, Violet is then chosen by not only the small dragon, but also one of the largest dragons that has ever been seen, Tairn. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to Violet, Tairn is mated to none other than Xaden's dragon, Sigale. Because Xaden and Violet are now connected through their mated dragons, they have no choice but to spend a lot of time with each other, which leads to Xaden training Violet to be the strongest that she can be. As Xaden and Violet grow closer and closer together, Violet learns of things that she didn't know before, and she's forced eventually to choose where her loyalties lie, to her family, to her country, or to what she knows in her heart is the right thing to do, protecting the weak and innocent. I really enjoyed reading Fourth Wing. I thought that Violet was a very strong, witty, fun protagonist to have, and I love seeing her being able to grow stronger, not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Now, with that being said, Fourth Wing is not for everybody. I love that the author, Rebecca Yarros, included this disclaimer at the beginning of her book. It says, Fourth Wing is a non-stop thrilling adventure fantasy set in the brutal and competitive world of a military college for dragon riders, which includes elements regarding war, battle, hand-to-hand combat, perilous situations, blood, intense violence, brutal injuries, death, poisoning, graphic language, and sexual activities that are shown on the page. Readers who may be sensitive to these elements, please take note and prepare to enter Basgiath War College. There are a couple of books that fall into that new adult genre that can be turned easily into a young adult genre if you just skip a couple of chapters. However, I would not say that Fourth Wing is one of those books. Just like the author herself wrote, there is a lot of graphic content that I want to warn you guys about before you or your children start to read this book. Starting with the language, frequent use of graphic and violent language from page 1 makes this book not suited for anybody under the age of 18. However, that's not all. Just like the author said, again, this book does include pretty graphic details, including violence. In fact, there is a named character in chapter 1 that ends up dying. There's also a lot of spice and sexual innuendos that are kind of laced throughout the book, again, meaning that you can't just skip 1 or 2 chapters and expect this to be a teenage-friendly book to read. Examples of this is the first innuendo is found on page 9. There's a very heavy makeout scene in chapter 22, and then there's the heavy spice scenes in chapters 30 and 32. So if you're not comfortable with reading actual spice, avoid those chapters. Now, with that being said, if you're reading this with your adult children or with a book club group, there are a lot of things that you are able to discuss. First of all, you can talk about chronic illness and weakness. Now, this is a fact of life that just is not mentioned super often in books that I see. And it's something that very clearly affects the protagonist really often. She gets hurt and she gets injured a lot more easily than other people. And I think that this is a really great opportunity to talk to your children or friends about what chronic illness is, how it affects people, and what you guys can do to help other people that might be dealing with chronic illnesses. Another thing that I think would be really awesome to talk about with this book is what kind of friends you should be looking for. Like I mentioned earlier in the summary, Dane is Violet's supposed childhood best friend. However, he repeatedly proves that he's not looking out for her best interest when he is trying to coddle her and protect her from really herself, and protect her from improving. So rather than pushing Violet to be the best version of herself, he decides that he needs to protect her and keep her from progressing in the way that she needs to. However, you have other characters in this book, such as Rhiannon, Liam, Rydok, Xaden, that are obviously always looking out for her best interest and are pushing her to become better and better. The last discussion question that I wanted to talk about is how to figure out where your loyalty should lie. Now, towards the end of the book, Violet kind of goes through an internal monologue trying to decide who she should be loyal to, whether that's her mom / her family, whether that's her country as a whole that she's given her entire life for up to this point, or whether it's to what she knows in her heart should be right, even if it is done not in a way that she ever thought it would be done. Now, I know this is a little bit vague, but I'm trying not to spoil anything for anybody that wants to read this for the first time. Overall, I would give Fourth Wing a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed reading this book. In fact, it was one of my favorites that I've read all year. I hope that this guide has given you guys some sort of idea on how to talk to your children about this book and what this book is about, who should or should not be reading it. Lastly, if you found this parent's guide helpful, please let me know in the comments and I will start doing more and more guides like this. Next week, I should be releasing a parent's guide to Iron Flame, which is the second book in this series. But if you would like me to read or review any other books, please again leave a comment and I will see you in the next video. Bye!